We're back on this journey of Anand Sahib, and I'm so glad that you're joining me. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at how powerless we really are in our own enlightenment. In the 6th verse of Anand Sahib, Guruji starts by saying, "Without this true connection, the body is shameful. The body is shameful without true connection. What can the helpless do? Except you, no one else is powerful. Bestow your grace, O Lord of nature. They have no other place. Embracing the word, they progress." Says Nanak, without connection, what can the helpless do? In almost all spiritual traditions, the enlightened ones have told us that if we don't live a life where we are striving to awaken ourselves, then our life is completely useless. Our time here on earth is so limited, and we're told that if we're not awakening ourselves, that we are wasting our lives. But the enlightened masters also know that this is the story of the universe. This is not something that any one person can control, even the things that are happening in their own lives. So the enlightened ones know full well that they can't take credit for their own enlightenment, and in the same way they can't blame anyone for not going forward, not realizing not progressing in their spiritual path. There are ones who are awakened, and then there are ones who know of awakening, but they keep falling on the path, and they find spirituality to be a struggle. They don't know, they like the sound of it, but they don't know how to achieve it. Everything they do never seems to work. And they realize that life is a bit like that as well. That sometimes in life, no matter what you try and achieve, things are always in the way. There's always obstacles. There's always plans and ideas of what you want life to turn out like. And maybe things never turn out that way. So people realize that in life, you can make certain plans, but things don't always go your way. And that's same also true for the spiritual path, that you can make lots of efforts, but ultimately your efforts are useless. And so you come to realize that you can't awaken yourself. You aren't responsible for your own spiritual enlightenment. There's no amount of learning that is going to keep you in this level of connection. So what do you do? Guruji says, if you don't awaken yourself, your life is wasted. The body is shameful without a true connection. But what can the helpless do? Dayh, nimaanee, livai, baajhahu, karay, vaychaaree-aa. What can the helpless people do? I think of the example that a caged animal who knows of freedom can only hope that somebody comes along and sets them free. They know that they are in prison. They know that they are locked in a cage. They know that there's something called freedom that's out there. But they don't know how to get out. They can only hope that somebody can set them free. And in spirituality, it's a bit like that. You know that there is an experience beyond the individual. You know that there is the ego, and there is the experience of being beyond the ego. But how do you get there? Who can say how you liberate yourself? Who gets to decide the rules of this game of enlightenment? And in Japji Sahib, we've heard this concept. In verse 33, Guruji talked about Jor na jugti chute sansar. No one has the power or technique to liberate the world. Jis hath jor kar vekhe soy. The one who has the power in their hands, that oneness, does and observes everything. Nanak uttam neech na koi. Nanak says, no one is really high or low. Only that oneness is controlling everything. In the journey of spirituality, we are on a path to be free from the prison of our own selves. But we realize that we cannot be the ones to liberate ourselves from ourselves. You can't escape from your own ego. So at some point, you have to surrender to the power that controls it all. And Guruji here in Anand Sahib goes on to say, except you, no one else is powerful. Bestow your grace, O Lord of nature. Tud baaj samrath koe nahi, kripa kar banwarya. Bless me that I may be released from my own sense of ownership. Bless me that I can be free from my sense of control. And this is really what the word home means. This idea that I am the controller of myself. I am the me that can do everything. And the blessing that we are seeking, the grace that we're seeking from the universe, is allow me to be free so that I can realize that everything is you. You are the controller of everything. And when you start to realize this, you realize that I cannot do this by myself. No one can do this by themselves. Realization happens by grace. And everything in life happens by grace. In Japji Sahib, Guru Nanak talked about karmi aave kapda nadri mokh duar. The very fact that your body is here is also a spiritual grace. It's not something that you did. You were not responsible for your body being here. And so in the same way, you're not responsible for your own awakening. So your liberation is also by divine grace. And this is when we have to start reflecting on the level of control that we really have. I like to think that we don't really control our birth and we don't control our death. So these two major events in our life, being born and dying, are out of our control. But somehow we believe that everything in between birth and death is in our control. And really, the more you think about it, you start to realize, actually, I don't have much control over anything in life at all. Now, most of us, when we hear about these things, we think that, there are some things that are in our control. Like I definitely control what I do, and I control my thoughts. I make choices every day. And you believe that you make choices at every single moment, that you're the creator of your own destiny. And when we go down this spiritual understanding, part of what we're doing is we're unlearning what we think we know about life itself. One of the big things that is really worth understanding is this idea of control. The idea that you think you have control in life. So there's a simple experiment that I want you to try right now, because I know everyone listening to this is going to be saying, well, hang on, I completely have control in my life, and I certainly control my own thoughts, like I can control what I choose to do. So I have an experiment that I want you to tell me. Can you try and tell me what your next thought is going to be? Take a moment and experiment with this. Sit back and try and actually think, do I know what the next thought is going to be? And you'll very quickly realize that if I just close my eyes, I have absolutely no idea what the next thought is going to be. In fact, I have to just wait for that thought to pop into my head. And this is what we do with life. Thoughts are constantly popping into our head, and we take ownership of those thoughts. We think we are the creator of those thoughts. An example that I think works really well is, I don't know if you've ever stood on a train station platform and you're waiting for the train, and imagine you see that there's someone standing a little bit close to the edge of the platform. How many times have you had that thought where you're looking at someone standing close to the edge and you thought, I wonder if that person's going to fall in? Have you ever had that thought? I wonder what will happen if I push that person in. Have you ever had that thought? I know I have. Now, when we think about it, straight away our mind becomes conscious and thinks, oh, that's a terrible thought. But more important, the question is, did you create that thought? Did you create that thought of pushing that person? Did you create that thought of imagining what it would look like when that person falls on the platform? Or has that thought just entered into your mind? You have to, when you reflect on this, you'd have to realize and concede that really I didn't create those thoughts. Thoughts just happened to occur in my mind. And the reality is, the more we observe our mind, we see that this is how all thoughts happen. Let's take another simple experiment, because I really think it's important for you to try and understand this. If you had to make a choice, if you had two things in front of you, let's say a chocolate bar or a cookie, and you had to choose one, what do you do? How do you make that choice? You literally look at both options and you think you're making a choice from one to the other, but the reality is you're waiting for an option to be selected in your mind. If I gave you the choice of apple or orange, assuming that you have no real preference for one or the other, or you don't have an allergy to one or the other, if you had two equal choices in front of you, red or blue, and you had to just choose, you don't actually make a choice. The choice gets made, and then you take the ownership and says, oh, I've chosen apple, or I've chosen the orange, I've chosen red color or blue color. You don't actually make that choice. And the more you reflect on your own mind, you start to realize, wow, I don't actually choose my thoughts. Thoughts are happening to me all the time and I didn't even realize it. So if you don't choose your own thoughts, then you don't choose the actions that happen after that. And so what can you really take credit for in life? And this is where it starts to become a little bit uncomfortable. When you realize how little control you have in life, then you can only sit back and hope and pray that the universe can liberate you from the prison of your own sense of delusion, your own delusional thought of control. And this is what Guru is describing here, that those people who are on this journey start to have that little bit of uncomfortable discomfort where they realize, oh wow, I'm really not in control of anything here. And Guru goes on to say, they have no other place. Embracing the word, they progress. Es no hor thao nahi, shabad lag savariya. When you realize that you are at the mercy of the life force of the universe, when the life force of the universe is doing everything, not just the stuff that's happening on the outside, not just making the sun rise and making the weather and all those things, but actually it's controlling, it's actually doing the thoughts that are happening in your head. It is doing what is going on in your body. Here's another example where we don't have any control. We have absolutely no control over what our body is doing. When you're a child, that child's body just grows. You don't control it. You don't control how tall you're going to be. You don't control the color of your skin. It's just something that's happening. You don't control the color of your hair or the length of your hair. These are things that are just happening. And we understand that, but we never really reflect on it. We don't say the universe is doing what it wants with my body. We say this is my body. I'm controlling things, but really when you reflect on it, you realize I'm not doing very much at all. And so when you start to surrender and realize that you're at the mercy of the universe is thinking for you, the universe is growing for you, is breathing for you, is controlling the environment that you're in, then you start to realize that nothing is in your control. And you have been controlled all this time. And as soon as we say this, I know what happens. Our mind starts to get a little bit defensive, and you don't like the idea of being so powerless. And who is that? Who is that that doesn't like that? It's really this ego. It's this thing inside you that says, I am. The thing that wants the I am to be there. That is the bit that's really uncomfortable with this total lack of control. It doesn't want to lose this sense of me. It doesn't want to give this me, I amness up. And what can happen if you don't have the right guidance and you're taught some of this wisdom is that the ego will start to feel so helpless, like almost that it's a prisoner. The ego will start to feel depressed and low, as though you've been deceived your whole life. That what's the point of life if I can't do anything? If I don't even control my own thoughts, if the universe is doing everything, I might as well kill myself now because I can't do anything. And so you feel that without free will, life has no meaning. And it's all the delusion of this I amness. This I am wants to stay in control. It wants to hold on to the delusion that it is controlling everything. But with the Guru's guidance, this realization needn't be a cause for concern. With the Guru's guidance, this realization can actually be something that starts to set you free. Rather than seeing this as a prison that you're locked into, you start to realize how lucky you are to be given access to this wisdom. How lucky it is for you to realize the beautiful game of life that's being played here, where life is playing all different parts of the show. Life is playing every single character. Life is playing the audience. Life is the set. Life is the props. Life is absolutely everything and every part of this drama. And when you start to see the game of life, when you start to see that you are also a character in this theater of life, you can't go anywhere else. You realize that this is all happening and I have nowhere else to go. I am here. I'm a part of this life. So Guruji says, "Es no hor thao nahi." They have nowhere else that they can go. And you realize that you have always been a part of this game. Now, as long as you resist this game, as long as you resist this universal power, being in total control of everything, that's where you will suffer. Your suffering will continue as long as you resist it. But the more you embrace in it, the more you rejoice and delight in the universal game, the more you'll be free. You'll be free from the bondage of yourself. You'll be free from the shackles of your own delusion of self-control. So this is how you can start to now progress from this feeling that, what am I here for? What is my life about? What do I do? What is my life capable of achieving? I can't do anything myself. You can fall into that trap, or with the right guidance, you can start to move into this lighter, enlightened way of thinking. Now, how you act knowing this knowledge at this point, how you choose or how you then become engaging with this wisdom is going to determine how your journey continues. So, Naam is the experience of being awakened. Naam is the experience of being in total awareness that Hukum is in control. Do you at this point start to fall? Do you at this point, at this hurdle, start to see this as a barrier that says, this is not worth it, I don't want to be on this path, I don't want to continue in this way? Or do you surrender to it? Do you let go and realize this is all a game? The more that I surrender to this game, the more of my intrinsic bliss I will experience. I will be in my own state of contentment and bliss that is within me. Kahay Nanak, livai baajhahu, karay vaychaaree-aa. Guru Nanak ends with this cliffhanger that says, without this true connection, what can the helpless do? What can I do? How do I act knowing that I cannot act? How do I think knowing that I cannot think? What actions do I do? What thoughts do I have? And the only thought that you can have at this point is, do I resist or do I let go and surrender to control? Answer these questions either by yourself or discussing them in a group. What did you discover from the thoughts exercise? How does the idea of being powerless make you feel? What do you understand as having lived a spiritual connection? Is life really wasted without this spiritual connection?